Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about a Song of Ice and Fire, aka A Game of Thrones. For those of you who don't know, A Song of Ice and Fire is a series of books, and A Game of Thrones is the name of the first book in that series. And this isn't my normal kind of video that I do. This is just something I like, something I enjoy, so I'm going to make a video of it. I've been thinking about it, and so hopefully there might be a couple of Game of Thrones fans out there, or A Song of Ice and Fire fans out there who might enjoy this video. But to kick this off, I gotta tell you that if you haven't read the books or watched the TV series, there are going to be spoilers in this video that I'm making here. And also, if you haven't read the books, but you have read the TV show, there will be some spoilers, because there's a lot of stuff in the books that isn't in the TV show. So if you've watched the TV show and you plan on reading the books, you might want to skip this video. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, and it's been percolating in my mind for a while, is that the main villain in, or maybe that's not the right word, villain, but the main antagonist in A Song of Fire and Ice is not obvious, I don't think, right up front. And I'll explain why. Because this person is either, I don't know, a straight up villain, or possessed by some kind of demon or something, or just stupid. I mean, really, really stupid. Or maybe unlucky, I guess. Maybe it could just be luck. But yeah, it's this person's list of follies lead to so many deaths and so much war and all this. This one person just rips apart the kingdom. And some of you might already know who I'm talking about, but it's Catelyn Stark. And I'll go through her list, the list of things that she's done that are incomprehensible, and the consequences of her actions are so destructive. First of all, when at the very beginning, when Ned is saying that he's not going to go down to King's Landing and be Hand of the King, he tells her that, and she talks him into it. She insists that he go down there and leave Winterfell and become Hand of the King. Now, if she had not done that, if she had just let the man stay there at home and continue to be Lord of Winterfell, none of that stuff would have happened. None of her family members would have died. Everything would have been fine. A-okay. They could have lived the rest of their lives happy, raised their sons, and if I remember correctly, I don't even think Bran had fallen at that point. So, I mean, it could have actually changed that. You never know. He could have went down, Ned could have went down the next day and told the king he wasn't going to be Hand of the King, and the king could have got pissed off and just went back instead of taking him hunting, right? And then if they didn't go hunting, then Jaime and Cersei wouldn't have been in that tower when Bran went up there and fell from the tower, or got thrown from the tower. So none of that stuff would have happened probably. Bran wouldn't have been hurt. Robb wouldn't have died. None of that stuff would have happened if Catelyn would have just let Ned stay home. But she didn't. And right on the heels of that, in that very same conversation, Ned wants Jon Snow to stay at Winterfell, and she refuses. She will not have it. No, she will not have it. She don't want that bastard around her. Get rid of him. I don't care what you do with him. He can't stay here with me at Winterfell. So then the Maester speaks up and says, hey, Jon's thinking about going to the Wall anyway. And Jon wants to go to the Wall because of Catelyn in the first place, because Catelyn hates him and won't accept him into the family, and he's the outsider and shit, and that's largely due to her and her treatment of him. Now, if she had just said yes to that, okay, yeah, you're right. Jon is a good kid. I'll make sure he's safe. I'll keep him safe here with me. Jon can stay here at Winterfell. And then Jon doesn't go to the Wall. Now, everything else could have transpired the same way, except when Robb went south to go to war, Jon would have been with him. All right? And he would have been beside him the whole time. And when they stormed the crag, it could have been Robb, or it could have been Jon that took the arrow and then fell in love with Jane. And then Robb would have removed the stain of bastardy from him and given him the title of Lord so he could marry Jane. Right? Because Robb was a king by then. He could have done that. And maybe he would have already done it just because he loved Jon and they were brothers. And as soon as he became king, that might have been the first thing he did there was just make Jon a Stark. So he could have married Jane. Even if that specific thing didn't happen, it was very likely that Jon's presence in the war would have changed all kinds of outcomes. It would have, like the butterfly effect, it would have changed everything. They wouldn't have gone to the crag at all, and then he wouldn't have broken his word to the phrase, and there would have been no red wedding. Just if she would have let Jon stay in there in the beginning instead of getting him sent to the Wall. Okay? And Jon wanted to be with his brothers. He actually came really close to leaving later on before he said his vows. And even after he said his vows a couple times, he came really close to leaving the Wall and going back to Winterfell to be with Robb. All right. So that now we've got just total destruction and chaos just off, the first, 2 or 3 chapters of the book because of her decisions. Deaths and just war and chaos and all this stuff that happened from the decisions she's made. Her husband's died because she talked him into going down to King's Landing. Her son died because she wouldn't let Jon Snow stay there at Winterfell. And everything that happened with the girls after that and all that, all that is repercussions off of her decisions. So now, the next thing she does, which is horrible and has repercussions again, is after she gets down to King's Landing, because after the guy tries to cut Bran's throat and gets killed by the wolf, she goes down to King's Landing and she falls for everything Littlefinger tells her. Just hook, line, and sinker. The most deceitful, duplicitous, slimy bastard in the entire series of books is Littlefinger, and she just buys everything. And everybody's telling her, Jaime Lannister, Tyrion Lannister, and one or two other people tell her how Littlefinger lies about taking her maidenhood, and she just brushes it off. Oh no, Littlefinger wouldn't lie about that. He wouldn't lie about that. He loves me like a brother. Now, of course, he fought Brandon Stark for her hand. Obviously, she knows that Littlefinger loved her more than sisterly, more than in a brotherly way. But for some reason, she just fools herself into thinking that Littlefinger is this honest, upstanding guy. And she spent all this time with him as kids, so she's got to know he's a lying, duplicitous snake. But anyway, her acceptance of Littlefinger and her trust she places in Littlefinger kind of gets Ned in a hesitant position, because he doesn't trust Littlefinger. He seriously dislikes the guy, but he kind of goes along with Littlefinger a couple of times because of what he did for Catelyn and how much trust Catelyn had in him. And that has a lot of ramifications down the line. But yeah, that was just one of the stupider things she had done, is to trust Littlefinger. You're sitting here listening to this, or I listen to the books on Libro FM, And I'm listening to it. I'm just thinking, like, what the hell is she doing? Is she stupid? You know? But she believes him. She trusts him. So there you go. After that, and they head back north, right? After she talks to Ned and gives him the dagger and trusts Littlefinger and all this stuff. Now, her and Sir Roderick head back north, right? On horseback this time. And they show up at that inn. And this is probably the biggest thing she does to cause chaos and calamity throughout King's Landing, throughout the Seven Kingdoms, is she takes Tyrion Lannister prisoner. Of course, because she believed Littlefinger. When Littlefinger told her just that bald-faced lie that it was Tyrion who owned the dagger and all that shit, it was just a bald-faced lie. She unjustly arrests Tyrion Lannister and takes him prisoner. And then takes him up to the Eyrie. Now the repercussions from this are that Tywin Lannister starts a war. He sends the Mountain into her home, the rivers, the Riverlands, and starts killing and pillaging throughout the Riverlands. And a whole war is started because of that one action she did to take Tyrion Lannister hostage. Just the epitome of foolishness. Just completely stupid. So that whole war, just thousands upon thousands of deaths, could have been avoided if she had just known what everybody else knows, that Littlefinger's a liar. And didn't trust him enough to imprison another human being and do all this. And she had to know that Tywin wasn't going to sit still for it. She had to know that there were going to be consequences to her taking Tywin Lannister's son prisoner. So the ramifications from that are clear all the way through the entire series, because the war is ongoing the entire time. All the way up until Jaime Lannister goes up there way later in the books and starts to settle things, right? And then you think after she starts a war and kicks off all this conflict and strife and murder and desolation throughout the entire Seven Kingdoms, you'd think she'd be done. You think, well, she'd learn her lesson and maybe keep her mouth shut and do what she's told or something. But no, she's not done yet. So after they go to the Eyrie and Tyrion, gets himself free through Bronn and having Bronn fight for him in a trial by combat. So then she leaves and she meets up with Robb at Moat Cailin. Now, Robb tells her his plans and stuff and all that, right? I'm going to do this, and this and that, and then I'm going to get an escort together for you and have them take you back to Winterfell. And she says, no, I'm not going back to Winterfell. Why is this a bad thing? Well, if she had been at Winterfell, Theon Greyjoy would not have attacked. Number one, probably she just had enough sense in other ways. I don't know why she acts so stupid in making these big decisions, but I think that if she had been at Winterfell, she would have kept some security there, some small modicum of defense there. So Theon Greyjoy couldn't have attacked just with 50 guys or whatever and climbed over the walls like they did. Not only that, but I don't think Theon Greyjoy would have even attempted it if he'd known she was there, because he knew Sir Roderick was the only one there. And he knew Sir Roderick, and that's the only reason he took Winterfell, was because Sir Roderick was in charge, and he says it there when he's talking to Dagmar Cleftjaw. So, and he tells Dagmar Cleftjaw that, Sir Roderick's the only one there, and he's dutiful. He's going to do his duty. So, that's why Theon Greyjoy knows that Dagmar's feint attack will pull all of the strength out of Winterfell, and then he can go just take it. Now, if Catelyn Stark had been there, that wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't even have tried it. He would have just had to do what his dad told him to do and, harried the Stony Shore and shit, and that would have been it. So, yeah, that was another folly of hers, that she could have easily just saved her sons, saved Winterfell just with her presence, if she would have just done what Robb told her to do and went home to her little boys. But she refused. So then she goes down and goes with Robb to Riverrun, and on the way there, they've got to cross at the twins, and then she's the one that goes in there and gets Robb hooked up with this Frey girl, betrothed to a Frey. And that's another thing. That was her thing that got Robb. I know that he made the decision in the end to do it, but it was her in there doing it. She's the one who brought it back out and said that she made the deal. So if she would have said no in there and got something else done instead of that, Robb would have survived. And then after that, she turns Jaime Lannister loose against everything that it's the only thing they had, really. The only coin they had left, a bargaining chip they had, was Jaime Lannister hostage in prison, and she just lets him go and gets nothing for it. The girls aren't released, nothing. Jaime Lannister, he gets his hand cut off, but he just goes home. And they receive nothing at all in return for Jaime Lannister, except the Red Wedding. So, yeah, that was another just horrible decision by her. And it's one of the many. It's just, there are so many of them that have just horrible ramifications for her family and for the entire Seven Kingdoms. That's what leads me to believe that there's something going on there. And then at the end of the series, toward the end of Book 5, A Dance with Dragons, she's survived the Red Wedding. Well, she died, and then Beric Dondarrion brought her back, right? So now she's Lady Stoneheart or whatever. And they bring Brienne of Tarth to her. And Brienne of Tarth has been looking for her daughters, trying to save them. And she has Brienne hung. Another horrible decision. She hangs the one person who has been loyal to her. And that leads me to something, another subject completely, which is my conspiracy theory on that. Because when, at the end of A Dance with Dragons, Jaime Lannister is there in his tent or whatever, and somebody comes in and says, there's a lady here for you, and then Brienne walks through. Now, this is after Brienne has been hung, okay? Because the last time you saw Brienne she was hanging from the end of the rope. She was strangling, along with Podrick Payne and that other knight she was with. I forget his name. But that ended there, that chapter ended there with her hanging at the end of a noose, and then you see her again and she's alive and fine, and she gets Jaime Lannister to ride off with her, right? So here's my conspiracy theory. That wasn't Brienne that came to get Jaime Lannister. All right? Now, if you go back to Jon on the Wall and look at what was happening with Mance Rayder, how the Red Woman had Missandei, the Red Priestess, she had done a glamour on Mance Rayder to make him look like the Lord of Bones. Remember? So, yeah. And in Lady Stoneheart's party there, is the Red Priest, the Thoros of Myr. So he must be able to do those glamours as well. And also, as they drop hints throughout the series, that the magic is getting stronger. They need less and less stuff. And the stuff they do, the magic they do, is easier to do now. So I believe that Thoros of Myr put a glamour on someone. And remember when Melisande was getting pissed off at Mance Rayder because he wouldn't wear the bones, because the glamour stuck better if you had an artifact or a trinket or something physical that the other person was linked to the other person visually, right? The bones, everybody knew that those bones were the Lord of Bones armor. So when he wore the bones, everybody just assumed that was the Lord of Bones. It was helpful. The same thing, I believe, happened when Brienne walked in, and the first thing Jaime saw was that sword that he had given her. So they had taken that sword from her, and that was like the bones that Mance Rayder wore. Whoever was playing the part of Brienne was wearing her sword. Now, as far as who was playing that part, who that person actually was, I've racked my brain and I just don't know, because they don't give you enough information to make an educated guess, really, because they don't tell you that you can make a woman look like a man or a man look like a woman. Every time Melisande does it, it's a man portraying another man, but they don't specifically say that it has to be a man, right? Or to portray a man, or a woman to portray a woman. So I don't know if the person playing Brienne there in that glamour, when she talks to Jaime, I don't know if that's a man or a woman. It's hard to tell. Number one, it would be easier for a man to portray her because of the height difference. A tall man would have a better time portraying Brienne than a demure woman, a smaller woman. But the voice would be more difficult because Brienne doesn't have a man's voice. She's got a regular woman's voice. A lot of times that's how people told that she was a woman, but when she had her helmet on and shit, is when she spoke, they knew she was a woman. So I don't know. I don't know if they found a really tall woman. They never really talked about a woman. It could be that healer girl. Remember the girl that was healing Brienne as they were carrying her after a biter chewed off her face and shit? It could have been her, because she was the only other female that they really talked about besides Stoneheart. Or Catelyn Stark, whatever you want to call her. So that's my theory, that Brienne is dead, or at least captive or something. She's not free. And number one, she lies about the Hound having the Stark girls to Jaime, because the Hound doesn't have the Stark girls. We know that, reading the books, we know. So Brienne come in there and then lied to Jaime about that, and Brienne wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't have lied to Jaime for any reason. So she's just too honorable for that. So that wasn't her. That wasn't her that told that lie about the Hound having the Stark girls. So whoever that was just led Jaime away back to the band of robbers, the band of outlaws. Now, what happens after that, I don't know. Does Jaime realize this somehow? And, I hope it's supposed to be probably already written, but I don't want to get into the next book. And we could make a whole video on that, just talking about J.R.R. Martin and his whole delay on the sixth book. But yeah, and then Melisande said something too as an afterthought. She said something about when she was talking about the bones, Mance Rayder and the bones. She said you need something like that, a little I don't know what that's called, like a little personal item of the person to make the glamour stick. And she mentioned a bag of finger bones in there. So now I've always questioned Davis Seaworth. But still they write, and here's the thing, that when Brienne was hanging from the tree, they wrote from her perspective, right? Now, when she walked into the tent with Jaime, they wrote from Jaime's perspective. They didn't tell you what was going on in Brienne's mind, and that's one of the reasons I believe that it wasn't Brienne's mind, because that would have given it away. Because, the person would have been thinking, hey, I hope this, Jaime Lannister doesn't catch me in this or whatever, But whenever they talk about Davos Seaworth, they're from his, they write, it's from his perspective. It's from his point of view. So I don't know who could be impersonating Davos somewhere or what. He lost his finger bones in the Battle of the Blackwater. So I don't know why. Maybe that was just something that was mentioned just and didn't really mean anything. I don't know. But if any of y'all have attached that and noticed that when she said that, and you figured out what that meant, then please tell me down in the comments, because I still can't puzzle that one out. I don't know what the hell she was talking about when she talked about the bag of finger bones. I don't know if she's doing some other glamour somewhere else or something. I don't know. But I think that Davos Seaworth is Davos Seaworth. I don't think he's a glamour being portrayed by somebody else. Maybe she did that at some point somewhere that she's referring to, and I just didn't catch it. I don't know. But yeah, I just like talking about the Song of Ice and Fire series, and I don't know anybody who likes it personally, and I don't know, I don't have anybody else to talk to about it, so I figured I'd do a video about it. Yeah, I thought it'd be pretty cool. Maybe there's a couple of y'all out there, some of my subscribers, who might enjoy talking about it. And if you do, leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about my thoughts on the series. Tell me what you think, and if you wanna have a conversation, maybe we'll talk about the next book coming up and what might happen in the next book. Might be fun to throw some ideas out there and spitball some ideas about what we might expect in the upcoming book. All right, well, I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll put that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I'll leave that link down in the description too. If you're interested in Gen X gear, we got some pretty cool stuff over there at Redbubble. T-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff. Gen X things and Gen X branded stuff, but I'll leave that link down in the description as well. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out an awful lot. Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.